Right. So we are here for episode 2 with an exciting guest. We are here with Ashley Rosenbaum-DePalo with the Rosenbaum Law Group. And Ashley's been an attorney in the personal injury industry for a good decade. And I'm going to let her elaborate a little bit more because she's been around this industry for a long time. But I'm excited to have her on because here at Rhodes Chiropractic, we treat a lot of folks that get into car accidents. And so a lot of these questions, which are really legal questions, our front desk gets asked, the chiropractors get asked. So I'm excited to essentially ask all these questions that we get asked on almost a daily basis. And I'm excited for this to be a resource for them. But before I really get into the questions here and the nitty gritty, I just want to welcome you to the podcast, Ashley, and maybe you could share a few things about your business and how you got into this industry.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yes. I've been an attorney for 12 years, actually, but I've been around it my entire life because my dad was an attorney, personal injury attorney. He founded our law firm, early 80s,
Okay.
before I was born.
It's been a bit.
Yeah. And we're in the same building there off Northeast Broadway. My dad retired in 2023 and my business partner and I took over, but our firm's been helping people for a long time.
Yeah, decades.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, essentially you took off with the practice and now you've been running it with your business partner, Aaron, right?
Yes, correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the focus of your firm really mostly is personal injury. People that get in car accidents, they get hurt, or maybe they get hit on their bike. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. And we've known each other for years, and you're just a fantastic person and just a lovely gal and professional. And so I'm excited to have you on here, being a resource for our patients and then also other providers that maybe don't understand the ins and outs, and for them to be a resource for their patients as well. So I just want to set the tone a little bit. I have a personal story to this because my wife is a chiropractor and she had a really bad car accident about 10 years ago when she was about 5 years into her career. And I really saw firsthand how it affected her. And I didn't realize until then, how it can really take over someone's life, how stressful it was, her dealing with her injuries and trying to continue to work and just navigating that. And really, it was like a 5-year time span of just dealing with this. And so it really helped me personally, see how it could affect people. And I think in a way, it helped me relate to patients even more and just be more sympathetic with what's going on and know that, hey, there's more beyond even just this medical side. There's a whole legal side. So I'm happy to have you on to answer some of these questions. So let's get into it. If that sounds good.
Yeah.
So let's start here. Let's say, someone's listening to this and unfortunately they get rear-ended, they get into a car accident. From a legal standpoint, what are some of the things someone should think about right after a car accident? They're on the scene. Should they be taking video? Should they do photographs? What kind of information should they collect?
Yeah, at a minimum, you want to get a picture of the other driver's license, insurance card, and their vehicle with the license plate. If you're able to get video of the scene showing, how the cars ended up or the intersection you're at, I've had clients send me videos of what the traffic lights were doing immediately after, which can be really helpful.
Okay.
If there's witnesses that stop, definitely get their information. They can be very important. But yeah, insurance, license, vehicle information is the most important.
Okay, that's great. And this day and age, there's cameras everywhere. Is that sometimes come into play? Are you able to, dash cams or cameras just in the area? Does that come into play this day and age at all?
It can, but it can be hard for us to get that video footage. A lot of businesses, even if they have the footage, sometimes it re-records over itself within 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
So by the time a client calls us and we go out to the scene and try and get the footage, it's not there anymore.
I see.
So if you can document what you can there, that's the best.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. So here's the second question. I think this is maybe on a lot of people's minds after a car accident. Should they call an attorney like yourself? Some people are like, well, I think I can deal with this on my own. Some people, like a friend or family member, tells them, no, get an attorney right away. So for the people listening, should they, contact an attorney right away?
Yes. We do free consultations, so it doesn't cost you anything to call and just pick my brain, someone else's brain. It's a free call. You might as well call, understand what the process is like, what you should and shouldn't be doing, what you should and shouldn't be signing for the insurance company. That's important.
Okay.
We can walk you through that process. And if we're going to represent you, we'll take over the correspondence with the insurance company. So it takes that off your plate. You can focus on getting to the doctor, focusing on healing and dealing with your injuries.
Okay. I think that's a big point and pretty important. I think the free consultation part. So you will spend a half an hour, whatever it takes to really understand that person's situation. And are there some times where you tell them, yeah, you don't need me right now. Sounds good. And then there's other times where, hey, yeah, let's understand this more.
Absolutely. And if it's a case where either you weren't injured or you already have a decent settlement offer on the table and you call me and I think I can't add a whole lot of value, I am more than happy to tell you that. If you went to the doctor one time, but you weren't injured and they're offering you thousands of dollars, I may say, take it. You don't need my help. I don't want to take a percentage of the settlement money, when you can get it yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, always make that call and I'll walk you through it. And if it's either not a good fit or you don't need my help, I will tell you that.
Okay. That's great. And then you mentioned another question that comes up, when the, just attorney conversation comes up, people, I think, and they've told me, well, I just can't afford an attorney. I don't have thousands of dollars to spend on this. Can you speak to that, how much money does someone need to work with you, or how does that all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we get asked that all the time. It doesn't cost you anything to work with us. That's one thing I love about my job is I never bill my clients. They're never pulling out their checkbook to pay me. Our fee essentially comes from the money we get for you from the insurance company. So it's insurance company money. It's a contingent fee, which means if we don't get you money in the end, we don't get paid at all. And you're not going to pay us as the client. The insurance company is paying us. So that's a huge benefit. It's no out-of-pocket cost, no risk to you even, because if we get to the end of this and let's say there's no insurance or it ends up that you're at fault and you don't get a settlement or something happens.
You don't bill them later.
I don't bill you later. I just close my file. We call it a day and I write off those costs and fees.
And that's pretty unique to this niche, right? Because other attorneys work in different ways in criminal or business, you pay them up front, a retainer. So Absolutely. This really is a unique situation in this niche, right?
It is. Okay. It is. It's very unique. Yeah. There's very few types of law who are even allowed to do contingent fee work.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's really important for anybody listening that, hey, free consultation, and then you're not paying up front. There's really, to me, not a whole lot of risk or anything to lose here. And to have a professional that does this day in, day out to kind of help them.
Yeah, exactly. And even after our fee comes out, which our fee for settlement is 1/3 of the settlement that we get for you.
Uh-huh.
Our clients are still so much better off than if they did it themselves.
Right.
I had a client recently who came to me with a settlement offer from the insurance company for $1,500.
Okay.
And I said, let's bring you on. I will represent you. You'll get the medical care you need. We'll be patient. We'll work through the process and see what happens. And we ended up settling her case for $25,000.
Okay.
So even after our fee comes out, she's so much better off than if she did it by herself.
Right. Yeah. I think, a lot of patients maybe know that, the attorney takes 1/3 and they're worried about that. But in the end, you are probably going to help them out more than if they did it on their own.
Yes.
And is it better for someone to talk to you in the beginning or at the end? Are there mistakes that people could make throughout that journey?
There are absolutely mistakes you can make. So call us sooner rather than later. Call any attorney sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I've had people come to me who settled their case and signed a settlement release and didn't realize what they were signing.
Okay.
Cashed the check, accepted it, and thought, they maybe had another claim available or something, and they didn't. I've had people come to me and they signed medical authorizations for the at-fault driver's insurance, which allowed them to get all these records that weren't even related to the claim that they weren't entitled to.
Okay.
So yeah, talk to us. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of terminology. It's confusing if you haven't been through it. And we're there as a resource and to filter through,
right,
and make sure the insurance company is not overreaching.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very helpful for people to know. I think some people are like, oh, I'll just wait. I'll wait.
Yep.
But to get ahead of this situation, it can be key. Let's see here. Here's another thing that we hear is we have a lot of lovely patients, and most people are just amazing, great people. And, someone does hit them and they're, oh, it was such a lovely person. I don't want to sue them. And they almost think they're going to take their house and take their life savings. And they're like, I'm not out for blood. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely.
And that kind of mindset? And is that what someone's doing if they hire you?
No, not at all. And we hear that all the time too. People come to me and they're like, well, it was an accident. They didn't mean to hit me. They apologized. I don't want to go after them, make them pay. And you're not. You're going after their insurance company. All of us are required to have car insurance to be on the road in Oregon. We're all paying premiums. That's why we have insurance. So it's not coming from this kind person who accidentally rear-ended you. They are not paying a dime.
Right.
It's their insurance company that's paying for this. So,
okay.
Yeah. The premiums you're paying aren't a donation to Geico or to whoever. Right. You pay them so you have coverage when something like this happens.
Okay, great. So they're not going to take their house. They're not going to take their life savings. No. Okay. Yeah, because most people out here are just great, amazing, hardworking people, and I understand that. But that's an important point to make. That's why are you paying these insurance premiums if you're not going to use it?
Yep.
So let's get into a little bit into the medical side. So when should someone seek medical attention, and maybe right after the car accident? What's a recommendation? Does it depend on the extent of the injury? Like, how do you consult your clients there?
Yeah, it absolutely depends. Obviously, if you have a serious injury, go to the ER. If it's not as serious, urgent care is a great resource. Okay. If you can get into your primary care doctor within the next, few days after the accident, that's a great spot too. Okay. I would say majority of my clients do some combination of chiropractic, massage, physical therapy, sometimes acupuncture. So consult with some sort of medical provider sooner than later.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And on that note, how are medical expenses paid? I think maybe a lot of people just don't understand. Do they use their own health insurance? Do they use their car insurance? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So in Oregon, all car insurance is required to have personal injury protection. We call it PIP, PIP, those are the initials. Okay. And minimum PIP medical coverage in Oregon is $15,000. So anybody with an Oregon policy has $15,000 in PIP medical benefits. So you go through your own insurance. Okay. That's an important part. Yes. A lot of people are like, why? Yeah. Why did I have to use my own insurance company? I didn't cause this. Right. The rationale behind it is they want even the at-fault driver to be able to get medical care if they need it. Okay. So it's a no-fault benefit. Everybody has PIP. You have it even if you don't drive, but you're a passenger in somebody's car. You have PIP. So from their policy. If someone's driving and their friends, they're going out to lunch and there's a driver and 3 friends, they all get that coverage, even though it's not their car. Yes. They all get $15,000 to go get medical care. Exactly. And it could be higher. I've seen a lot higher PIP policies too, but that's just the minimum. Now, what can they, use that on? Can they get a massage with that? What exactly can a person use that coverage for? Any kind of medical care that is for treatment of accident-related injuries. And the great thing about PIP is, unlike health insurance, it doesn't have to be in-network. You don't need prior approval from PIP insurance. You just go to the doctor, they bill PIP, PIP pays them. I hear, and you can probably talk to this, I hear it's a smoother process sometimes than health insurance. Yeah, I would definitely say it is smoother. It's a little bit easier to deal with. And yeah, there's just less red tape and hoops to jump through. And I would agree on that. And that is a good point too, that you don't have to go to an in-network doctor, because you think of health insurance, everybody's used to, are they on my list? Yep. So, for example, someone could come see us,
and they have State Farm or any insurance, they can come in. So that's a good point. So what about this? And I think you hit on this a little bit. What if they are the ones who hit somebody, they caused the accident and they got hurt? Do they still get coverage?
You still have PIP coverage. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about if someone's worried? They say, well, I don't want to open a claim because I don't want my insurance to go up. Can you speak on that, or is that kind of a topic maybe?
It's more of an insurance underwriting issue.
Depends on their track record. And
exactly. If it's your first claim, usually it doesn't ding you. If you're not at fault, it shouldn't ding you at all, because they're going to get reimbursed from the at-fault
right. So if someone
coverage.
got hit, and we've had that, people are like, I don't want to open it, I don't want my premiums to go up. It should not, because someone else hit them.
Exactly. And your own company will get reimbursed from the at-fault drivers.
Okay.
So even though your PIP's paying that $15,000 in medical up front, they're going to get it back at the end.
Okay. Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So what if someone, let's say they just moved here from a different state, they just moved from California, how does that work? Do different states have different policies on this?
They do, vastly different. And that's another big reason to call an attorney sooner than later. California, PIP's not mandatory. So there's a lot of people who do not have PIP medical coverage at all.
Okay.
I think actually they call theirs MedPay, but it's not mandatory.
Okay.
Washington, their minimum is $10,000 in PIP, and you can waive it in writing.
You can say, no, I don't want that.
Yes.
Get a cheaper premium.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a client right now who recently moved to Oregon, but didn't switch his policy, didn't notify him. He moved to Oregon and he has no PIP. So call an attorney, get them your deck page. You can usually download it on the app, and we can walk you through what your coverage is.
Figure that all out.
Yes. And sometimes too, even if you don't have PIP on your policy, but you are living with a relative who has a separate PIP policy, you can get coverage.
Okay.
So there's a lot of ins and outs, yeah.
Okay, we might hit on that a little bit later. Can you speak to this? Probably a lot of people listening to this don't know what maybe a lien is. So I don't know if you can speak to it, but if they do not have that coverage, and they want to go get care, is it possible for them to not pay up front for their medical care, and essentially a clinic just kind of hold that balance for them until the case is done? Is that possible?
That's possible, and it happens all the time.
Okay.
We sign what we call a letter of protection, and we, with our client's permission, it's a standard letter, but it says, we will reimburse this provider from the proceeds of the settlement for this medical care they provided. We do it either if there's no PIP or if they exhausted their PIP, but they still need medical care.
This day and age, the minimum is $15,000, but if they go to the ER and get an MRI or a CAT scan, or they're in there for a night, they might chew through half of that, and then they go to PT or a clinic like ours, and then that's gone in a month or two. So they can continue. They don't have to stop right when that's done.
Correct. They can continue as long as the provider is willing to hold that balance for them.
Okay. Got it. Okay. That's great information. Let's see. What are the other questions people ask? Let's see. What other misconceptions or misunderstandings would you say that people come in with? Are there any top of mind or common that maybe I haven't addressed here, but that people mention that you have to kind of keep repeating?
Yeah. The biggest one probably is what we already talked about, is that we don't bill, you don't pay us a retainer. Our fee comes out of the money that we get for you.
Okay.
The second is, I would say a lot of people have this idea that if they're not really seriously injured, or the car's not totaled, or the airbags didn't go off, that they don't have a right to a claim or don't have a right to a settlement.
Okay.
That's not the case.
Okay.
I'm sure you see it all the time, but there can be minimal damage to the car, and people can have pretty significant injuries.
Right.
And I'm being a former athlete, I can tell you, I've had sprains and strains that take longer to heal than a clean break.
Right. And to kind of go off that topic, there's people that have, back pain and neck pain before they get into a car accident. Can you speak to that? Because I do find maybe someone is dealing with an injury or just a chronic neck issue back, and then they get in an accident and they're like, well, I was already hurt. I am worse. How does that work?
Yeah. So that would be more of an aggravation claim instead of a new injury claim. And we usually need the provider's help for that. And as far as delineating between what was their baseline before the accident, what was their pain level, what did it prevent them from doing versus how did that change after the accident?
Okay.
And if there is a difference, they can be compensated for that difference.
Right.
Even if your baseline wasn't perfectly healthy going to CrossFit every day, if it suddenly got a lot worse and now you can't pick up your grandkids or do the walk you did every day, you still can be compensated for that, even if you weren't in perfect health before.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And I personally find someone that's been dealing with chronic injuries, or maybe they're a little older and fragile, that they just get hurt easier.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Now, what other damages can someone recover? So we're talking a lot about the medical care. But another thing that people are very concerned about coming in is I on a budget, I got to keep working, or I have to work at least part-time. Can people, get some coverage for lost wages, for maybe their car, now having this ding on Carfax? Like, what other factors come in minus the medical part?
Yeah. So PIP that we talked about before, there's the medical coverage part of PIP, and then there's also a wage loss coverage under PIP. So if you're off work for 14 days and you need a doctor's note releasing you from work, once you get to day 14, PIP will back pay you. And then going forward, they'll pay you up to 70% of your lost wages.
Okay.
There's a cap on that. It's $3,000 a month. So if you're a high earner, you'll probably max that out.
Okay.
But they will start sending you checks for your wage loss. It's good for 52 weeks. So you can be off work for a year and PIP will be paying you 70% with that cap.
Okay.
And then either the remaining 30% that wasn't covered or the remainder above the 3,000 is something that we include in the settlement with the at-fault driver's insurance at the end.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people don't know that. And maybe they rush off to work too fast and make their injuries worse, or they're just not allowed to rest and allow these injuries to heal. So I think that's important.
And you asked about Carfax.
Is that something they got a nice car? I hear that, that was my favorite car. I just paid it off and now I got to go get a new car payment, and, or it's got a ding on it. So it's on Carfax. Hey, this car has been in an accident. Yes. Like how does that whole part work?
Yep. So that's called a diminished value claim. And I actually just worked on one of those this morning before I came here.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have a car, it needs to be somewhat of a newer car because it needs to have enough value for the value to be diminished.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have frame damage, there's significant repairs that were done. The value that the car had the day before the accident is going to be significantly less now because you have to report that accident. And
even if it looks new and it's repaired, it's still...
Yes, people aren't going to pay the same amount for a car that had frame damage and repairs done as they were to that same car without damage.
Right, so you can help them recoup that.
Yeah, so we take the repair estimate, we send it to a diminished value expert. They write up a report saying, this is what the car was worth before the accident, this is what it's worth now, and we submit that to the insurance on our client's behalf.
Okay.
And they can recover that difference in value.
That's cool. I think that's something a lot of people, maybe it's not top of mind. They're not even thinking about it, but obviously working with someone like you, they can, recover those losses there. Yeah. That's great. What about reporting the accident to the DMV? Can someone, if they don't take the right steps, actually lose their license?
Yes, you have, I think it's 72 hours. You need to fill out the DMV form. It's like a 1 or 2 page form. It's on their website. Okay. You can email it in, you can fax it. If you're feeling crazy and you want to go to a DMV office, you can. But I would do the online version.
Right.
And you have to give insurance information, parties involved, what happened. But yes, you need to fill that out within 72 hours or they can suspend your license.
Wow, that's crazy. So make sure people do that.
Yes,
and you can assist them and help them and guide them on that too.
Yes, regularly. I'll email the form to my client. I'll have them fill it out and then I will fax it to DMV for them.
Okay, that's wonderful. You kind of hit on this before, but should people send files, documents, signed documents before they've consulted with you?
No.
Okay.
No, please don't. I know it's a ton of paperwork and in this day and age, I think most people don't read things. They just go to the bottom, hit the electronic signature and send it back. And like I said before, the at-fault driver's insurance company will tell you they need a medical authorization, or they need your social security number. They need all these things that they're not actually entitled to.
Okay.
And people will provide them not knowing, thinking, I have to do this
Right.
to present a
They're
claim.
asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Or same thing with giving recorded statements. We don't allow our clients to do that. It's not required.
Okay.
So yes, at least call and consult with someone before you sign all these documents.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We have had some patients come in, and, our front desk checks to make sure they have the appropriate, claim number, and we can start billing it and everything's good. And then we find out that, yes, they did sign something and everything's closed, and they still have pain and they can't continue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've seen that firsthand too.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate when that happens.
Yeah. Insurance adjusters are incentivized to hurry and close out claims. So they'll offer you, like I told you before, the client I had, they'll try and offer you money up front, hey, take $500. We'll direct deposit it today. We'll be done. But people don't realize then that's closing out your claim, and you may need a heck of a lot more medical treatment, or there may be things that pop up down the road that you don't think about. So
yeah. Okay. That's
don't
a big
rush
deal.
into anything. Yeah. You have 2 years from the date of the accident until you need to settle. So
2 years. Rush. Okay. That's great. Mm-hmm. Now, what about, because people, let's say someone gets hit on a bike. How does that work? They're riding their bike to work and boom, all of a sudden they get hit. Does their car insurance kick in? How does that exactly work? Or if there's walking to work, how does that all work too?
Yeah. If you have car insurance as a pedestrian or cyclist, it will kick in. It'll cover you the same way your PIP car insurance does if you were in a car. So you'll have your medical benefits. You'll have your wage loss. If you don't have car insurance, because cycling is your primary mode of transportation, which in Portland, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Right.
You can get PIP coverage through the car that hit you.
Okay.
Yeah. And it can get tricky because it gets confusing, and kind of the order of your insurance versus health insurance versus other drivers' insurance.
Right. But you can sort that out for them.
But we sort that out. We make sure, and sometimes you can be double covered, which is great. Get all your bills paid through multiple policies. So
they can actually get, that 15 you talked about, and then maybe another 15 on top of that somewhere else.
Yes. I've had pedestrians who have their own car insurance policy. The $15,000 in medical is paid through their policy. They still need treatment, so we get the extra $15,000 from the other driver's policy.
Okay. So they might not run out of money as quick, or just have more access if they need more care.
Yes.
Okay. And they have up to 2 years to use that.
Exactly.
And to get better.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. So what if someone gets hit by someone that doesn't have insurance, or it's a hit and run? How does that work?
Yep. So that's when your uninsured motorist coverage comes into play. We call it UIM.
UIM. Okay.
We're all about the abbreviations over here.
Yeah.
So UIM coverage, minimum in Oregon is $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident. So if there's 2 people, they would each get 25.
Okay.
A lot of policies can be a heck of a lot higher, but that's the minimum UIM coverage in Oregon.
Okay.
And it's something, again, that you've been paying premiums for. You and I have been paying premiums for decades.
Okay.
For this exact situation. If you get hit by someone without insurance, or they flee the scene, you can't track them down, you would open a UIM claim through your own policy, and they would pay the same type of settlement that other driver's insurance would pay had they been insured.
Interesting.
And you'll still have your PIP. You'll still have that coverage that's separate. But so we're still getting you a settlement at the end. It's just coming from a different pot of insurance money.
Wow. I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. So even if someone hits, runs, can't track them down, there's still potential to get a settlement.
Yes.
Okay. And again, they can contact, someone like yourself to work through that and understand the details. What would you say is the most challenging thing in your job, your day-to-day? What is the most difficult thing about what you do?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe managing kind of the outside noise. Clients come to us having talked to their neighbor or their friend or their kid's soccer coach, and everybody has their experiences, and they tell them, this is what you need to be doing, or your case is worth this amount, or just the outside advice, and getting our clients to trust us in this process and understand that each claim is so specific to the facts of the claim. Just because your aunt got $50,000 for a car accident 10 years ago, it doesn't mean that your claim is worth that much.
Okay.
And so the damages that we're getting in the settlement for our clients, a lot of people call them pain and suffering damages.
Okay. That's the same thing when you say settlement, that's pain and suffering. So
exactly.
A dollar amount for their injuries, permanent injuries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the kind of longer version is physical pain, mental and emotional suffering, and interference with normal and usual activities. And that third one is really important, and it's not usually talked about as part of the settlement.
Okay.
But like I said, it's very fact specific. So we take a lot of time to talk to our clients about, what did your week look like before the accident? What did you normally do as far as your hobbies, your exercise routine? What did you like to do on the weekends?
Mm-hmm.
And how did this accident change that? And that's where a lot of the value comes from. And I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around putting a number on the impact this had on their life, because usually most people would never take a dollar amount to not be able to do these things with their family, not be able to take care of their body. But that's how our system works.
Right.
And there's no formula for it. It's just based on experience, what a jury's going to do. And so our clients do have to put a lot of trust in us, and most of them do. And most people are appreciative and happy of the outcome, but it does take some education as far as talking people through the insurance process.
Right.
So that's
why they need to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
I can see that, because there's people that come in saying all sorts of things, and I always tell them, look, I'm not an attorney. Like you need to go consult. I don't know the answers to these questions. I can help you on the medical side.
Yeah.
But now they can listen to this and get some answers. And what would you say is the most enjoyable thing about your career, what you do for your clients?
Yeah, I would just say as a whole, it's very rewarding. People come to me when you're, as a personal injury attorney, in kind of like a high crisis mode. They've just been hit in a car accident or hit as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist, and they're in pain. They're off work. They're getting bills from the ambulance carrier that they don't know what to do with. It's overwhelming. People are calling you. So I can take that stress off their plate. We can deal with all the insurance stuff so they can go focus on medical treatment and getting better. And then at the end, when we get to give them a check in addition to that, it's rewarding. You're helping people. I can't give them back the time they lost, but we can help them get the compensation that they're owed for their injuries and for how it affected their life.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that's most the questions that we hear. I think we covered a lot there. Are there any other, questions that you hear that you want to, tell our audience, or anything that maybe we didn't hit on that you want to add here to kind of wrap things up?
I think you did a good job covering everything. Yeah.
Okay.
We do have on our website, rosenbaumlawgroup.com.
Yeah. How would people get a hold of you? I want to ask that, but go ahead.
Yes. Continue. I would say I wrote a blog article on there. It was like an FAQ for car accidents. And we kind of hit like the top 10 questions that we mostly get about insurance coverage, about some of the things we touched on today. So if people want to go to our website, we have blog posts on there. I think the FAQ one is a good starting point. So Portland Metro, we do the whole state. I would say majority of our cases are Tri-County, Multnomah, Clackamas, Washington, but I've had cases in Southern Oregon, around the state, Central Oregon, but majority is Portland Metro.
Okay. And if someone wants to do that free consultation, they can call this number here, 503-288-8000, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's fantastic. And I think if someone still has other questions or a particular situation that's unique to them, do the free consultation and figure it out from there. So, well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. This is what you do day in, day out. You've done it for over a decade. I mean, your dad's been doing this since the 80s, so you really know what you're talking about. And I'm glad that we can provide this as a resource to our patients, future patients, and then also maybe to other providers out there listening to this, just to help educate them on the ins and outs of this. Because, a lot of providers graduate out of, med school, chiropractic school, PT, and I don't think this is something that is taught a lot. And that's one reason why I was excited to have you on and just share this. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come on and share with us. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm always happy if there's providers who want to sit down and pick my brain about some of this stuff. I've had coffee with new chiropractors who want to treat MVA patients, but they don't know where to start or they're not sure how PIP works. I'm happy to be a resource.
So from the provider side, you're willing to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. No, that's fantastic. So because it can be a confusing world for the provider side too. So thank you for being willing to do that too. Well, thanks for coming on, Ashley. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.